Alright guys, so a week or so ago I had got this engine in. This is a Predator 212. No, I'm sorry. This is a gx200 196cc engine. So what the customer had sent this in for was for me to take a look at it, check it over. He had got this engine for cheap, used, so he just wanted me to take a look at it. You know, first thing I kind of noticed is the rod. Well, I did a couple things. I've removed the cam, measured the base circle, measured the lift, measured the top of the lobe. So I measure here, then I measure here. When you get this measurement, you take this measurement and subtract the base circle. That gives you the lift. So, you know, he didn't know what cam was in it, so I figured out what cam was in it for him. Down here inside the engine, I'll take you off the tripod and show you what's going on in here. Let me get a little flashlight. Get my finger out of the way. So if you see, where's the camera? I don't know if you can see it, but right here, they've notched a big chunk out of the rod. Let me see if I can spin the engine over a little bit more without knocking the engine over. Alright, maybe that'll... Yeah, you could see it clearly straight ahead right there. You see this huge notch taken out of there? And you see down here all this abuse this rod has taken. Let me get the light. Yeah, you can see right here on the journal of the rod, you know, this big embossed piece is coming around and it just ends right here, and then it comes back right in here. Well, they had clearanced the cam right out of the rod there. That's a big no-no, especially, you know, through ARC, and you always want to follow a manufacturer's guidelines. ARC, and this is an ARC rod. This is, what's the rod number on this? Let me see if I can see it. 6270. So it's the ARC 6270. If you can see that in there. An ARC definitely does not want you clearancing on their rods. The rods, so the number one thing to fail in a go-kart, like an actual track engine go-kart, is going to be usually the piston to bore. Usually, you know, you get those pistons all galled up on the side, and then that ends up blowing up the piston and, you know, detonation, engine, bye-bye. You know, the second leading cause of engines blowing up is the rod. The rod, you know, best thing you could do is put on an ARC rod or some type of aftermarket billet rod. But once you talk to any of these manufacturers, they don't want you clearancing on those rods. So if you see here on the cam, you could see right in here where the camshaft has kind of been self-clearancing on itself. I'm making a video, baby. And so the camshaft has been kind of clearanced out of the rod. The way to do it is you have to clearance the camshaft itself. You got to take that meat off the lobe. So this right here needs a new rod. So that's something I noticed. Also, I haven't unbolted the rod yet, but when I move, it's sitting on a weird stand right now, so the flywheel's kind of getting hung up. But when I take the flywheel and move it back and forth, just the amount of, I could see the rod moving a lot on the crank. Now, that's something I'm going to have to unbolt and actually mic up and see how that was clearanced and see what the crank looks like if it's all galled up. But that seems like the clearance in there is a little bad. Looking into the cylinder, There is some light scratching, nothing I'm worried about, nothing I'd even take a hone to. Piston looks fine. So next step for me is I'm gonna pop the rod out, pop the flywheel off, take it apart, check it a little bit closer, mic up the crank, see if that's all set. It's gonna need a new rod, so we're gonna be putting a new rod in it. I don't know if it needs a crank yet, depending upon the size of it. And then we're gonna be putting it back together. I think he's already got a cylinder head off for me. So he's got a nice fully radiused chamber cylinder head, one of the dual radius chambers that I have. He's got one of those cylinder heads, so it's going to be making some good power on a 196. It's going to have some good compression ratio. They had to get the compression ratio up on. I have some other parts here that I was going to test fit. You know, I have some ARC rods in stock. I got some flat top pistons, but a lot of my stuff that I have in stock just for fitting things up is for a 212, so I don't have a flat top piston for this, so that might be something I'll have him order as a flat top cast. I really like billet pistons. I don't know what his budget is. I'd recommend a flat top billet, you know, with some valve release in it, not sure. But we'll see what he's gonna do, but plugging away at this project now. I'm just gonna take it apart and measure it today. That's what I'll do for the next few hours. I have got a lot of boxes in, a lot of big packages. I got about 7 or 8 big huge boxes, some machinery, so I'm going to be doing a box opening now. So I'll film that, edit these things together, and get these out on today. Today is a Saturday, so I'll edit these together and get this out today. Alright, same engine, got the rod cap off. This is how the rod bearings look. I'm gonna flip the engine over around now. I'm basically just throwing everything in a box for now. I'm gonna flip the engine over, slide the piston out, check out the rod, and I'll get right back. So flipped it over. This is kind of what I thought. You know, the journal, I don't know if you could see it down in there, but the journal on the rod looks kind of like shit. I could kind of tell by the way it felt that there was going to be some problems with it, but that's the journal on the rod. Is the corresponding bearing. I don't know if it's really focusing too well. The bearing's kind of short. You could see to the left bottom, looks like almost like a divot. Let's see if I can put it down. You know, right down in here, I don't like this looks. So it's gonna need some bearings. We're gonna be putting on a new rod anyhow because of this. You can see it now, the way it was clearance there. You know, this part here is absolutely crucial for spreading out the load. You know, if you think about it, and you have, you know, the piston and the rod. You know, this thing is taking all the force. You know, if you're clearancing this rod is taking all the force of the engine. You got to clearance the cam. All the cam is doing is taking the force of the springs. You know, you do not want to clearance on this rod. This rod is vital. You could see both sides of this rod have been just huge chunks taken out of it. That definitely takes away from all the distribution of force around that crank. So this rod is a 3.303 length. Honda ARC. I don't know what happened there. I think my camera died. So 3.303 length Honda ARC rod, 6720. So we'll be getting into this a little bit deeper. At this point, just want to call the customer, let him know what's going on with the findings, and see what he wants to do to move forward. See right in here is how the Babbitt material is kind of pushed out of the bearing and down into the oil hole. That's a clear sign that there was crankshaft galling going on. And these scores in here are extremely deep. I mean, you know, over on this side right here, I mean, there's a big cliff where, you know, it feels like maybe that piece of Babbitt material had spun around and gouged the bearing a good amount. Some of these bigger holes, like right in here, might be just where that, you know, got picked up from. But this crank and this rod definitely have seen better days. So if you see a bearing that's in any type of looks like this, definitely replace the bearings. If you come in contact with a rod that's been clearance like this, replace the rod. So that's it for now, and